A viewer sent me this Nintendo DS Lite that they reshelled with an extreme right shell and with white buttons. It looks pretty sweet in my opinion. Looks really cool. However, there are a few issues that need to be addressed. He said firstly the L button, it kind of only clicks down halfway and sometimes it even gets stuck. The cartridge reader, he said, is not working, so we're going to be taking a look at this one. Going to be fixing it up, seeing what exactly is wrong here. So let's test out this cartridge slot, shall we? Put a DS card in. Clicks nicely. Well, we see the Nintendo logo, so it read the game. Read the game first try for me. Maybe it's one of their cartridges that's bad, an easy fix. If your cartridge is not working, just do this several times. You can blow it, and then do that several times, and it should read it a-okay. Let's make sure it can read GBA games as well. And one thing I have noticed is the hinge. Okay, well, it read GBA games just fine, so that's good. It's reading games just fine. So the hinge. So as we see, it opens, kind of a big click right there, and then it has multiple clicks towards the end there, and so that's not right. So they put the hinge in backwards. So I'm just going to take the hinge out. I'm going to take the hinge out like that, flip it around like that, and put it back in. That's all that went wrong there. But now for the shoulder button. So I'm just going to make sure that it works. So we can see it's working just fine, but it is more definitely sticking a little bit. So let's get this thing taken apart. I'm going to fix the hinge issue. Try to get the shoulder button cleaned. Try to get the shoulder. Okay. Let's get this hinge issue fixed and the shoulder button issue fixed as well. And I'm going to also clean the contacts on this DS Lite just for it to read even better. Going to wear gloves for this because I don't want to get any fingerprints or any of my natural oils on this DS. Would not be very epic gamer. I'll show an example of what that looks like. So here we can see on the top, this is actually perfectly clean on the top, but we can see there's some fingerprints and just other dirt and grime. So I'm also going to take this top plate off and clean on the inside of there to get rid of that. It'll make it look a lot cleaner. So alright, let's continue to take this console apart. So this screw here that was in there, this screw is a screw for the battery cover. We can see the threads only go up about halfway on this thing. We can see the top of it's pretty smooth. They likely used the correct screw here, and yeah, we can see the top half of it is smooth. So extreme rate includes 2 separate battery door screws. I'll keep that one over there and we'll use the correct screw. Very easy to mix screws around. There's so many different screws, to be honest. Alright, so let's pop that off, set it off to the side. So the spring on this guy, he's all bent. That's not what we want to see. Typically, if that was in its slot, then it shouldn't matter even if it's bent like that. But we can see it doesn't even want to click. So I'll probably use a whole new spring to replace that one with. We can see this right shoulder button's spring is perfectly fine. That's a-okay. So let me get a replacement spring out. Let's get this busted spring out of here. We can see it's busted. That's not good, guys. Alright. So that's back in there. We can set that off to the side. That's looking good. So now I'm going to disassemble the console more to the point to where I get to the hinge. Alright, so here we go. The hinge is out. And I'm going to put the hinge in here where it should stay. And let's do this. So now the hinge, you can see, is working as it should. So let's get the LED diffuser in here. Put that back on. Get these screws back in here. One of these screws is slightly stripped, so I'm going to replace it with one that isn't stripped. I'm just going to reroute this Wi-Fi cable a little bit. I like to route them underneath here. That's where they were from the factory. I think it looks the cleanest too. Okay. So now this L button. So let me hit it. So it doesn't look like there's any bending whatsoever, which is good. I might not have to resolder it, but I'm going to put it back together real quick, and I'm going to see how it does. If it's still the same, then I'm going to. You can already tell the shoulder button, it's acting just the same, and it's not even clicking anymore. Sometimes shoulder buttons are just plain finicky. One thing I will do, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the metal rod and spring entirely. There's 2 solder points here on this shoulder button. One is right here, and the other's on the other side right there. So I'm going to put solder on those joints, and I'm going to push it very hard this way, with this while I solder. That will tilt the shoulder button up that way a little bit, and it'll make the shoulder button feel a little more elevated, which is pretty much precisely what we want. And honestly, again, it still feels largely the same as before. So since that didn't really fix it, there is one final thing that at this point I'm certain is the culprit. So here on the front of this console, there's the transparent green from the extreme rate shell built in, but the person who swapped this, they also kept the original bottom screen border. So that can cause a couple of things, all of which I thought I didn't see on this thing. So one, it can make the buttons feel shallow because it's putting more space between the board and this piece right here, which makes the buttons just feel shallow, which now that I'm seeing it, they do. And another thing that can happen is it'll make the touchscreen not work properly. But I mean, the buttons might have felt a tad shallow, but I honestly didn't think anything of it. And the touchscreen also worked perfectly fine. But I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to remove that bottom screen border because it, like I said, it just adds more space between the board, and that is definitely something that can cause an issue with the shoulder button here. It is still being finicky. Sticking. Shouldn't be sticking. For the heck of it, let's pull out this third-party shoulder button. Let's put in an authentic Nintendo shoulder button. Alright guys, I have come to the conclusion that the third-party aftermarket extreme rate white shoulder button is what's causing the issue. I put an OEM one in. It feels great. It clicks perfectly fine. It doesn't get caught on anything. It clicks like new. I can try to trim it down right here, along here, and underneath the whole way here. That might help it. I'll tell you, these buttons click so much nicer after the bottom screen border has been removed. Extreme rate leaves a shallow gap here so that if you want to put this thing on here, then it can sit on there totally flush with the shell, as if it was made to do that. It feels like it just feels like it's new, basically. That totally fixed it. Yeah, I think that was the issue. I'll just try to find the best ones I can. But if he wants me to chop this one down instead and to try to use this one, then I'll absolutely do that. So now for this top, gonna get this in here. All right, so let's get this top plate off here. So the screen, we can see it's pretty much all on the screen. So let's just give it a little cleaning. Looks much better. It's super, super shiny. So now we can get these screws back in. Alrighty, so now there's one last thing to do. Gonna be a little honest, that has never ever happened to me before. Dude, both of the screens are just suddenly blank. I guess we're gonna do a motherboard swap now to see if that fixes that issue. I have absolutely no idea in this world as to how that possibly could have happened. I literally didn't do anything that could have caused that. At least it's happening now, while I still have it. So let's get this motherboard swapped real quick and see if a new one fixes it. This guy has dirty button contacts, so I'm gonna fix them up real quick. Let's get these 2 screws in. Let's get the Wi-Fi chip on. See if it works now. Well, doing a little motherboard swap fixed it. So since this board that I had has this protective silicone stuff on it, this has to be removed. So now that I've swapped the motherboard, the cartridge reader should be perfectly fine. Cartridge in, other cartridge in. Okay, it read the GBA game, but not the DS game. So what we're gonna do, gonna do this just a few times. Right at A-OK. So now I'm going to clean it professionally. Put it in the DS. He should not have an issue in the future. But honestly, all in all, phenomenal job on the shell swap. Everything looked A-OK. A couple screws were mix matched. The hinge was in backwards, but that's all super, super easy to do. Not a biggie. I mean, they even got these four stickers there. There's still one last thing to do. I want to get this black bottom screen border on top of here. Clean up with our trusty minion paints here. Awesome job on the shell swap. Like I said, I'm impressed. Like, if you guys have a DS that you want me to take a look at, just let me know, drop a comment. We can arrange something and I can get it fixed up for you. Thanks, man. It was a pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great day. Subscribe for more.